Okay, today is the final day where we discuss the mitzvahs and prohibitions related to idolatry and tapping into unholy powers, as it were. So the first mitzvah of the day is a prohibition against the practice of chaver. This was an ancient magical practice where they would use magical words to try and make magical things happen. The Torah prohibits this practice, the chaver practice. The next mitzvah, interesting prohibition against communicating with the dead. Back in the day, people would make a point of not eating and then going to sleep in a cemetery in the hopes that the dead person would come to them in a dream or whatever it is. The Torah prohibits this practice as well. The next two mitzvahs pertain to Ov and Yedoni. We've already studied in previous lessons the prohibition against practicing Ov, where the person follows a specific type of formula to induce a perception of hearing a mysterious voice that would answer his questions. The Torah already prohibited that practice, but today we have a mitzvah that prohibits consulting with an Ov practitioner. And the next mitzvah prohibits consulting with the Yedoni practitioner. You may remember from previous lessons, the Torah prohibited the Yedoni practice, where a person takes the bone of a bird, puts it into his mouth, and then offers an incense, and then this induces him to enter a trance-like state and start issuing predictions about the future. The Torah, again, we've already studied the mitzvah prohibiting this practice, but today we study the mitzvah that prohibits consulting with the Yedoni practitioner as well. Next mitzvah is a prohibition against witchcraft. Okay, now the next couple of mitzvahs are not prohibiting idolatrous practices per se, but they're telling that the mitzvahs are forbidding us to behave in certain ways that people who worshipped idolatry would. So the first in this series is a prohibition against cutting the sideburns. You shall not round the corners of your heads, because this is the way, this was a hairstyle that idol worshippers used. Then the next prohibition, the prohibition against shaving the beard, this area here, the Torah prohibits that, again for a similar reason, because that was the way of ancient pagan priests. Next prohibition prohibits men from dressing like women, and the mitzvah after that prohibits women from dressing like men. The next mitzvah in our list in today's lesson prohibits tattoos. A Jew is not allowed to put a tattoo on his body. Following mitzvah after that is a Jew is not allowed to scar himself or mutilate himself in mourning because he's upset that someone passed away. Back in the day, people would who followed idolatry would pledge their commitment to idolatry through scarring themselves. The Torah prohibits this. And then the final mitzvah of the day is we are not allowed to tear hair out of our heads as a sign of mourning. And that's a wrap.